It is going to go through some earth-shattering changes. There are many serious problems in this business, like false advertising, spamming, and exaggeration. Some unscrupulous companies even steal people's private information to advertise their products, which has already caught the attention of the government. Currently, the authority is trying to legislate some laws to prohibit such conscienceless activities. Hopefully, with the legislation of these bills, the situation can return to its normal state.
Okay, here's a short little video on advertising. How will your country's advertising industry change? This doesn't say when, somewhere in the future.
It is going to go through some earth-shattering changes. There are many serious problems in this business, like false advertising, spamming, and exaggeration.
Okay. I'm not sure exaggeration is such a huge problem, because later on he's going to talk about legislation. I don't know how you legislate exaggeration. But let's look at something good. Here, earth-shattering changes. If the changes are very great, very fundamental, that's a good phrase to use.
And exaggeration. Some unscrupulous companies even steal people's private information to advertise their products.
Okay, so far he's outlining some problems, not much about changes so far. Again, unscrupulous is a great word to use. I'm thinking of Facebook, Google here.
Advertise the products, which has already caught the attention of the government. Currently, the authority is trying to legislate some laws.
Okay, it's the authorities. This is usually in the plural when you're talking about the government. So the authorities are trying to legislate some laws. Well, usually, I mean, technically speaking, this is not wrong, but people usually say pass some legislation. When something becomes law, it becomes legislation. So I'd suggest, instead of saying legislate some laws, why don't we say pass some legislation?
To prohibit such conscienceless activities. Hopefully, with the legislation of these bills.
Now hang on a second. Here we have a noun, and here we also have a noun. Legislation is a noun meaning law. Bill is a noun meaning law. You can't noun of a noun. So with the passing of this legislation, or with the passing of these bills, but this needs to change because this means law and this also means law. So with the passing of this legislation, the situation
can return to its normal state.
Now, I don't know what the normal state is. This answer seems to rely on government intervention quite a bit. Passing laws. Be careful of just relying on the government passing laws to form the backbone of your argument in part 3. I mean, he didn't talk of any future innovation that might occur in advertising, how we already see that advertisers are advertising more on, for example, podcasts, stuff like that. In the future, you might see something related to the launch of satellites into space. Maybe we're going to see more advertising in space. I mean, let your imagination run crazy. But with a question like this, where you are so free to imagine what might happen, I mean, advertisements might be beamed into your consciousness. We might not even need screens anymore. It's going to go straight to your brain, where you can have visuals showing the advertising. But instead, he just went for government legislation, and there wasn't really much talk about the change, just the government's going to make some laws. It's not a bad answer, but if you say something like this, you can expect some follow-up questions from the examiner.